How often does a random person on the internet tell you that you deserve better, or that you should cut off your friends because they're toxic, or that you should break up with your boyfriend because if he wanted to, he would? Recently, it seems that social media is becoming more and more flooded with these ideals of hyper-independence and individualism that aims to draw us away from relationships, friendships, and connections, and more into the state of hyper-independence and solitude. I have recently made the realization that we have been lied to. So often, social media tells you that you don't need anybody, you can do it all by yourself. We've been told that everyone but us is toxic, but is it really? Today's video is inspired by the book Social Chemistry by Marissa King. So, Marissa delves into the pivotal role that relationships and connections play in our lives as humans. She also speaks about the many challenges and pitfalls that we face while trying to build and nurture purposeful relationships in our lives. So, why do we even need to connect? Although to varying degrees, we're all social beings. Even introverts have social needs. In fact, I think it's important to understand that introversion is not synonymous with the lack of socialization or social needs. And on this subject of the social needs that we naturally have as humans, I'm drawing from two main psychological theories. The first being the famous Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Many years ago, Abraham Maslow created a hierarchy of needs that places social needs, which includes belongingness and love, as fundamental to human well-being. These needs come only after basic physiological and safety needs. This really emphasizes the importance of social connections for self-actualization and fulfillment, which are the two needs that come after social needs. The second is the social identity theory by Henri Tajfel. So, Tajfel's social identity theory emphasizes the significance of social categorization and group memberships. So, humans have a natural tendency to identify with social groups. I mean, we see this in our everyday lives, in friendships, and how we choose our friends. So, according to the theory, these group affiliations contribute to our sense of self-esteem and belonging. Okay, but why should this subject be such a big deal? Some research findings in this book found that loneliness increases the chance of premature death by 26%. Marissa says loneliness is as deadly as obesity or smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Now, granted, these statistics are specific to the United States, but I think it gives a good general perspective of how common and how dangerous loneliness can be. But when you think about it, it's quite a paradox, though, isn't it? To think that the time when humanity is more connected than ever is the time when people are lonelier than ever. Well, this is fundamentally because the advent of social media and how easy it is now to connect to people, to make friends, and to communicate has completely replaced physical, in-person interactions for most people. Time has proven that physical interactions remain irreplaceable. And this is because it's only through physical, in-person interactions that we can get something that Marissa calls the higher fidelity version of who people are. Because when you're interacting with someone in person, that's when you can look into their eyes, you can touch their hand, their shoulder, you can hear the tone of their voice and feel the emotion. And all of these are the puzzle pieces that contribute to those feelings of closeness, belonging, and fondness that we have with the people we're closest to. This issue of loneliness actually gets deeper than that. The thing is, it doesn't only affect our psychological or emotional state, but it also has physical and physiological effects. When we look at the stress response in the body, loneliness has been linked to elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol, and prolonged exposure to loneliness can lead to chronic stress, which in turn is associated with a range of physical and mental health issues like depression, anxiety, cardiovascular problems, as well as mental health issues and gastrointestinal issues. And then there's the neurobiological changes that come with that. So, research and studies have shown that loneliness can actually cause some changes in your normal brain activity, particularly in this area of your brain known as the amygdala, which is responsible for emotional processing. This heightened amygdala activation in response to social stimuli is most often observed in lonely individuals. So, loneliness has been many times found to be correlated with increased inflammation in the body. Now, chronic inflammation is implicated in a variety of health issues, including autoimmune disorders and mental health conditions. And the last effect we're going to touch on is cognitive decline and higher risk of Alzheimer's. So, long term loneliness has been associated with cognitive decline, which means a decrease in your brain functioning when it comes to cognitive tasks, as well as an increased risk for Alzheimer's disease due to the deterioration of those cognitive functions. And it also then accelerates age related cognitive decline. So, I mentioned earlier that I recently made a realization that we've been lied to. So I am generally a more introverted person, right? I don't have a big group of friends. I've never felt like I needed one. I always felt better in my own company and the company of the 2 or 3 friends that I've always kept. For quite some time, I was actually thriving. I was genuinely doing okay. And it's honestly only recently that I started to feel a shift. Like, I want all of it. I want the friendships, I want the circles, I want the love, I want the good, solid family relationships. So, in the book, Marissa King tells the story of when she first became a teacher, and she speaks of how much she struggled to find her unique voice and her unique style of teaching. And after failing multiple times with each new attempt of a different teaching persona, she says, once I began to open up, the fear left. I wasn't terrified of getting found out anymore. The fear of being found out comes when we have not reached the level of self awareness that allows us to be comfortable enough to share our true self with the outside world without fear of judgment, without fear of anyone caring too much. And once you have found yourself out and accepted yourself, you no longer have this social fear of being found out. So you want to be self aware enough to be authentic, but also realistic enough to know what parts of yourself need to be changed or tweaked and which need to be thrown away completely. Again, back to Tajfel's social identity theory, this is what will then determine what your belongingness and your social identity looks like. You want to plan that instead of letting it just happen.